Month, May 2023. Happy Mental Health Month. And I hope you and yours is doing very good. But I decided to take another episode and make this my episode 4 of the Mental Health, Civil Rights, Hip Hop, and Civil Rights Series, May 2023. Now, here's the thing, because I'm not just going to, speak on mental health during Mental Health Month, because I think mental health plays a role in all our behavior. And so, on the War on Drugs AM podcast, we gonna stick with this and stick with that. But whatever we do, we gonna make sure we talking about us and keeping it real and talking some real ass shit. You know what I'm saying? Leaving this next generation a blueprint that they can dive into, that when they feeling down, they can tap into somebody like my station, your station, that can give them a word of encouragement, So yeah, so that's what kind of shit I'm on, shit like that, making sure this next generation don't leave here without thinking, or like, who's, like, what's that book called? Where is Wardo? Just wandering around in the world and not thinking that nobody really don't give a rat's ass about them. Because I am your hood scholar Muff, and I care very deeply about us as a black race of people. So without that being said, with that being said, I just want to, let's talk about, my boy DMX and his mental health. And so we'll just title this one, episode 4, the mental health of DMX. Okay? So, yeah, so, when you think about the lives of our famous celebrities and entertainers, we never know how deep their pain goes or what the war on poverty and drugs did to attack them and how deep it really goes. Again, I am your hood scholar Muff. I am your host of the War on Drugs podcast, and this is going to be episode 4, where we're going to tap into the mental health of DMX. And this storyline of the legendary hip-hop artist DMX was words that came from DMX out of his book, the autobiography of Earl, which is his birth name. And he was born December the 18th, 1970 in Mount Vernon, New York, to his parents, Arnetta, and his dad's name was Joe Barker. I had no intentions on purchasing DMX books when I started looking for something to read in 2021, but I said, why not, and I'm glad I did, because I was able to learn a lot more from DMX and really respect who he is and was as a black man. And, because everybody poor is different and everybody poor's story is different. But what's not different is that us being here in the government, in the United States government, embedded in mental illness, it's just like all across the board for all of us in urban black America. Let's just be clear. Like DMX, I'm also a born and raised survivor of the war on drugs, Hunters Point, known for many things, Hunters Point, San Francisco. And everybody poor story might equal the same mental health, pain, and trauma, but everybody's stories are real realities, and they are all so teachable moments. So again, thank you for streaming in with me with the War on Drugs AM podcast. On this podcast, our goal is not to change the government. Our goal is to make sure that the government don't keep changing the fuck without us. I'm just saying. So, Again, I am your hood scholar Muff. Thank you for streaming in. Please subscribe, share, tell a friend. Tell the motherfuckers that's out there hating they need to tap in and learn some shit on our AM War on Drugs podcast, because we're going to be giving up some real game. And speaking of some game, we're going to tap into allowing you to hear from DMX himself on what he said in his book, Earl, the autobiography of DMX. I just happened to take it and put it into a presentation so that I can teach you some teachable moments. So let's dive in to what DMX had to say. Listen and listen good. Appreciate you. This is the story of the legendary hip-hop artist DMX. From his book, Earl, the autobiography of DMX. Earl versus the Board of Education. In the words of DMX. By the middle of the 5th grade, school 18 still did not know what to do with me. It was like the higher I scored on tests, the further I threw the eraser, and after I left Miss Smith's class, none of my teachers ever took me aside anymore. There was no more one-on-one, heart-to-heart conversations. They just pushed me and set me in the back or sent me to the office. I guess my teachers felt it was too much trouble to get inside my head and figure out what was wrong. Not that it would have been easy. School 18 was no more than your typical ghetto school, and in Yorkers, the only city in America to have abided by the Brown versus the Board of Education and desegregated their public schools. It was hard to find good teachers. The best teachers rarely came to teach poor black kids. It was the school main office that started to notice how often I seemed to come in the building with a busted lip, or I couldn't sit down because of the webs on my behind. One day, when my lip was badly swollen, they put me in the meeting with the guidance counselor and asked me what happened. I got a beating. What do you mean, what happened? I answered them. This is not the first time that you have come to school this way, Earl, so we would like to take a look at you. When the nurse pulled up my shirt and saw the bruises on my back and arm, there was marks going down the back of my legs. That was when the court started talking about taking me away. My mother said that if I could just stop being bad, she would not have to punish me. She just didn't know how to get me from doing wrong. So it was suggested that she take me to see a psychiatrist. And the next week, we went downtown to see a man who worked out of St. Mary's Church next to the hospital. It was cool to miss out of school, but we left the house really early in the morning, and it felt strange. Everything was quiet. When we got there, the guy talked to my mom first, and I sat in the waiting room. He had a lot of toys laid out on the table, and I started playing with them while I waited. When he came out to take me into his office, he asked me if I wanted one of the cars. I got excited because I had been having fun playing with the big red fire truck. It was bigger and nicer than the other plastic ones on the table, and I thought about how I could take it home and add it to my collection of paper airplanes and a little green army man. Yeah, I would love this one, I said. Which one do you want? This one. The man looked at my mother and smiled. Oh, you can't have that one, Earl. Why don't you take one of the smaller cars?
I started crying right away. I mean, why did you ask me if he wasn't going to give me that one I wanted? Right then and there, I decided that he was full of shit. And I didn't know if that was the only reason, but although we went there a few more times, I never spoke to that man about anything. After that, my mother felt she had no other option for me, and by the end of the 5th grade, I had truly zapped out. I was fighting all the kids, throwing chairs at teachers. I just didn't care about anything, so I took it as far as I could. The worst thing a teacher could do was to restrain me. Don't fucking touch me. Are you crazy? I will fucking kill you, you flat ass coffee drinking bitch. I hate when my mother touch me. Get your hands off me, you motherfucker. Fuck you. We think next year, instead of coming back here, school 18 had it. The judge told my mother that since she was incapable of keeping me out of trouble, the courts had to intervene. And so I was sent to Julian Dickman Andrea's Children Home, a school dormitory facility about 20 minutes away from the home. The term was 18 months. It was the beginning of my incarceration. I was 10 years old.
So I'm going to just let that sit for just like a minute. 10 years old getting pushed into the pipeline to prison just because the teachers didn't want to understand you. Your mom want to call you bad and act like she can't handle you. So I just thought this would be a very, very interesting piece to the movement of me trying to break down mental health in urban Black America, from our most prominent celebrities, hip-hop artists, the ones that, the R&B artists, the Shaka Khans and the Aretha Franklins and the Sammy Davis Juniors and the Red Fox. Everybody done been through some type of mental health trauma in America, and that's what we're trying to address here. So before I point out the trauma and the pain or hurt, I just want to first, thank DMX. Thank you, my soldier. Rest in peace. We appreciate you. You know what I'm saying? Thank you for always, have kept it real when you was alive. So just to have read your story after you was deceased, it just made me really just love him even more. He wasn't Tupac, but he was just another type of Pac. You know what I'm saying? So, and then I'm sorry that your mom put you through all that, So he tells a little bit of his story and how his mom used to allow all her boyfriends to whoop him. So, that was the kind of part of his problem, because every man that she happened to date, she would tell, so if he got sent home from school and 1 week is John, well, John would be able to whoop DMX. And then if it was next week, it was Henry, then Henry got to whoop him. Then if the next week it was Kevin, then Kevin got to whoop him, So that was, I'm sure, a lot to bear. But when it comes down to urban survival, it's just that, everybody is starting to be to blame. In my eyesight, the public schools, housing conditions, and our parental behaviors, And that's why I wanted to touch on what DMX said, because it's very important that we, tell the truth about what we're going through out here in the world, And so, nobody comes with tools to do parent. I mean, a handbook or know how to parent. But one thing about being a parent is that, we got to make sure we do whatever we can to try to protect our children and from physical, mental, and emotional abuse. And so I just like the fact that I just want to respect, give much love and respect to DMX, because he, spoke about his parents and the struggle that he had on the East Coast, and he talked about how he didn't really know his father at all. And then it sort of helped to understand DMX mental health and the war on poverty and drugs. And I was very able to relate to his story to the fullest. Except the parenting. I didn't have to grow up with I grew up pretty safe and sound. Blessed to my mother, blessings to my mom and my dad, bless their heart. May they rest in peace for, keeping their girls safe, just from, trauma like that as a child. And then I just, later I was like to myself, well, I was like a DMX mom, I was kind of wild growing up, but I always tried to make sure my children was with someone that was, that could protect them too, like my mom. And so that's why every story is a teachable moment for our future generations, and especially for our black and brown urban folks linked up with some of the poor and same conditions that DMX grew up in. He grew up very, 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 very poor. And although I grew up in urban black Hunters Point, I didn't grow up. I didn't know I was poor, growing up. We didn't know we was poor. We always had food. We always had everything we need. But we was just growing up in poor conditions, like Oakland, wherever there's poor people, the conditions are really bad. Just pay attention, y'all. Let's just start leveling our shit up. Like, look at Oak Park out in Sacramento. Wherever there's just black people, it's just bad for wherever there's black people, So I just want to read off some things a few pointers that I got out of DMX story that might help us better understand black urban mental health. And it's just like we got to pay attention to these 5 things when it come down to white nationalists, because they're steady attacking these things, their parents. So they're attacking you right now, so your children will feel it later. The living conditions, they keep us living in slums and in poverty, and then the education, they do what they have to do to make sure that we are not educated as African Americans, because they want us to be bums and poor and in poverty or in prison, And then another thing is protection. Stay close to God and pray. DMX always prayed. He had a very good relationship with God, no doubt. And teach urban survival. Encourage our young generation to do the right things. And I'm going to leave you with this quote from Lil Baby. What did he say? Never be trapped again. So I want to leave you on that note. I am your hood scholar, Muff. And I just want you to know that DMX was forced into the pipeline to prison, which is they coming for our children again. They're just coming in a new way. That's why I got a movement called Felonies Not Your Friend, because they coming for these children. These children need to know today's felonies is not going to be tomorrow felonies. Gavin Newsom signed into law that there will be no more juvenile prisons out here in California. And if we know anything about California, when one state does something, all the other states follow. So it's going to be the new modern Jim Crow. Again, stick with your girl. This is your hood scholar, Muff. Thank you for tuning in and streaming with the War on Drugs AM podcast. On this podcast, we talked about the mental health with DMX, and it's just not only in DMX, and it's in all of us. We all suffer from some type of mental illness. And on that note, if you or anyone you know suffering from mental illness or the thoughts of suicide, please stop, text, or call 988 888. Thank you. Until next time, be blessed.